Hey, it's Sri here, and in today's video we're going to talk about whether separation can actually help save your marriage on the verge of a divorce. Now before we dive in, I just want to let you know that I'm opening up some free spots for my masterclass training, which talks you through the 3 most important steps that my client Sarah used to be able to save her marriage in less than 60 days. It's a really amazing training, and I know you're going to love it. So just wait till the end of this video and I'll explain all the details on how you can get access. Now make sure you click the subscribe button below and click the bell button so you get notified every Sundays and Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for new videos that I'll be posting every single week on how you can go about saving your marriage, learning more about how to improve the quality of your marriage, and also learning more about male psychology as well. Now, if you haven't met me before, my name's Sri Rajasekar, and I help women to save their marriages and help to reclaim their sense of self and their self-confidence and self-worth by awakening their goddess within, but also teaching them specifically about male psychology so you can get to know your husband better than he knows himself. Now today's topic is a really interesting one because there's so many different theories around separation, and they typically come in 2 forms. 1, separate, because if you separate, then hopefully you guys will build a greater connection between the 2 of you during that separation. Or 2, stay, because how on earth could you possibly save your marriage when you're not actively working on it with each other? Now these thoughts are perfectly logical, and so if we're going to actually make an educated decision about this, we really need to look at the fundamental theories behind these 2 approaches. Now firstly, when it comes to separation, there are 3 key components to this. See, the first is that there's the theory that absence makes the heart grow fonder. So if we're actually going to spend some time away from our partner or spouse and we're focusing on other things, then not only will we develop a stronger connection with them or remember those beautiful times, but hopefully they will do the same. Now that sounds lovely in theory, but there are many times where it happens and there are many times where it doesn't happen. Now the second component to it is that the fact that internal growth is crucial to our development in a marriage. Now, a lot of people miss this part. A lot of people forget about internal growth and personal growth, because I always say that the real relationship in our life is the relationship with ourselves. And if we don't develop that, then the marriage is never going to grow to the level that it needs to. And so the idea is that when we separate, it gives us the space to be able to do that more. And then thirdly, from an energetic perspective, there is a bit of a release. Now, what do I mean by that? Is that especially for men, when guys are in that situation where they're having a really tough time in their marriage and they're under pressure, a guy wants freedom. And when he wants freedom, guess what? He wants to run. And there's that release of pressure, because when he's in the pressure cooker, which is the marriage, it becomes so claustrophobic. He's not sure what to do. He doesn't know what to say. And then he freaks out. So for him, a lot of the time it's about, if I can just get out of this environment, then hopefully that's going to help me to gain the clarity that I need. So those are the 3 key components when it comes to separating and the theory behind it. Now when it comes to staying, the first key theory is that it actually gives us the time to be able to work on things, which is a beautiful thing. When we've parted ways with someone, it almost feels like we can't actually work on it with them. But when we're actually in the house or in the environment with them, we actually have the ability to do things. So that's a good thing. And then secondly, what it does is it gives us the feeling of hope. It almost gives us the perception, well, if he wasn't interested, he would have left by now. So the fact that he's actually staying is actually a sign that, hey, he wants to work on things. So that's another reason why people go into the mode of deciding to stay. And then the third key, if you have children, there is obviously the benefit for them as well. Because so many of my clients and the couples that I've worked with, that's the thing that really pulls their heartstrings, is this feeling that it's going to impact the kids. And look, let's not beat around the bush here, okay? Challenges in marriages and divorces and so forth do have an impact on children, okay? There's no 2 ways about it. It doesn't mean that the kids are going to grow up and have all sorts of issues and so forth, but it does have a natural impact. Because when we're growing up, we look at our parents as heroes, and then suddenly they're parting ways, and it's going to have quite a large impact. But the key thing to remember here is that just because if you do go down the path of having a divorce or separation, that doesn't mean it's going to completely destroy the quality of the relationship with the kids and also the impact that it has on them. Because often it's better to have two people who are parted ways who are happy than two people who are together that are miserable, because that means that their role model for love is not a great one. So you also want to be thinking about that when it comes to making your decisions. But that's a little bit of theory around staying and separating. Now just quickly, what I want you to do is just in the comments section below, if you can just write down what's the single biggest challenge that you're facing right now when it comes to deciding around whether you should stay or whether you should leave. Just write your answers below. So then the question is where do we go from here? Okay, so in order to make the best decision moving forward, what we need to do is look at the advantages and disadvantages of both approaches. So firstly, when it comes to separation, and when I say separation, what I'm meaning is just like a short-term separation, okay? So where you give each other a bit of an opportunity to say, look, you go and spend some time by yourself, you do your thing for a little bit of time, and then we can discuss things in a month or 2 months or 3 months or however long it takes. So that's what I mean by separation here. Now the first advantage of that is it gives you ample space and time to be able to work on you. Now I'm going to say this to the end of my days, is that you must work on you. You have to go deep. And I don't mean just kind of going and taking a few yoga classes and so forth. That's all good, that's all important, but you've got to dive into the internal stuff within you. You know, what are your fears? What are your insecurities? What are some of the beliefs that you're holding on to? How have you shown up in your relationship over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years and so on? Have you been establishing boundaries and all that stuff? All of that is so crucial to understand, because when I often talk to my clients, what they often tell me is that, Shri, I was this way, I was so outgoing and extroverted 20 years ago, and now I just feel like a fraction of who I was. So they've disconnected from who they are. And so an important part of this is that you want to reconnect with who you are. You want to become the best version of yourself. And just getting yourself a little bit of space from that environment actually plays a huge part in being able to do that. Okay, so that's the first advantage of it. And secondly, it gives you an opportunity to elevate your energy. Okay, so what do I mean by that? For those of you who have worked with me and are familiar with my work, I am quite spiritual, and I do believe that, you know, the energy that we put out is typically what we get back. So if we're putting out lots of fear and anxiety and stress all the time, then the experiences that we draw into our life tend to mirror what we feel on the inside. So when we're able to get away from that environment and really focus on our own growth, we elevate our energy. And as we elevate our energy, then we tend to draw in some really beautiful experiences. We start to gain clarity of mind. And with that clarity of mind, you can make the best decisions for your future. And sometimes you may look back on the marriage and go, you know what? This actually has been pretty bad for a long time. And I'm not sure why I've tolerated the circumstances as they are right now, and have been for a long time as well. And that's actually a really good thing. You want to be gaining the clarity in your own mind, because so many times when there's a fear of loss, then we want to cling on for dear life, and sometimes that may not be the best outcome for you. And the third advantage is that it gives you the time and the space to be able to focus on those things that really bring you joy. You know, we live once on this earth, and you want to have fun, you want to experience joy, you want to experience happiness. You know, being in a relationship which isn't creating any sort of joy or happiness, and hasn't been for a long time, isn't serving anyone. Now that doesn't mean that you walk away, but it gives you the opportunity to be able to focus on the things that bring you joy. You know, maybe there was a career that you were involved in 20 years ago and you had to stop it for the kids. Maybe this is a time to say, you know what? I'm actually going to go down that path now, and I'm going to find some real joy and happiness. I mean, I see so many of my clients who go through the process with me and end up, you know, kicking ass in their careers and doing amazing stuff and making heaps of money and all that good stuff, because they've really recognized that it's important to take care of number one first. You know, what do they say on the airplanes? Put your own mask on first, your own oxygen mask on first, before you put on your kids. You have to take care of you first before you can actually make the changes in other areas of your life. So that's another advantage to separation. Now the primary disadvantage is that it gives us the perception that we're not actually working on the marriage. And when we're in those circumstances, our brain starts to work on overdrive and we start to feel fearful, like, oh my goodness, I'm not actually working on things. If we're together, how could we possibly grow together? How could we possibly improve? And so there is that definite perception that you're not working on it. And sometimes the other partner may feel like you're not interested in working on things as well. So that's the primary disadvantage of separating. Now, the second disadvantage is what we call nature's growth. Now, everything in nature either grows or it dies. So you have this relationship or marriage that you've created. And if we're not feeding it on any kind of level, then it slowly starts to die. And that's just what happens in nature. Everything in nature either grows or it dies. And so there's the perception that if we're actually, separating, how on earth could we possibly work on the marriage? So that can come across as a disadvantage as well. Now, when it comes to staying, we want to look at the advantages and disadvantages of this as well. So the first advantage is that it gives us the opportunity to be able to work on the current problems. We can have those conversations. We can spend some time actually together with our spouse, maybe when the kids have gone to bed and so forth, to actually work on things, to have productive conversations, to actually communicate each other's needs, to be able to discuss what's been going on over the last, 1, 3, 5, 10, 15 years. Where do we think that things started to fall over? What were some of the needs that weren't being met? What were the needs that were being met? You can focus on the positives and the negatives with each other and really get to understand each other's worlds. So that's a huge advantage of being able to stay. Now, the second advantage, and we touched on this a little bit before when I talked about the theories behind staying, is that it gives you hope. It gives you that feeling of, hey, listen, we're actually working on things and we're putting some time and energy into it. So let's really make this happen. So that's another huge advantage of it. And it can help to just ease the mind a little bit, because naturally when we have this feeling of loss, we're immediately in survival mode. And when we're in survival mode, we're freaking about losing the marriage. So, being able to actually work on the marriage helps to give us a little bit of hope that we can actually make this happen. And the third is the kids. If you've got kids, staying in a marriage can help them and address some of the fears that they may be having at this moment in time of mum and dad potentially walking away. So there is definitely that component to it. Now let's walk through the disadvantages. The first is there is the potential to make it worse. Now remember how I said before that the key thing is about working on your own growth? If you're having conversations with your husband or partner and neither of you have the ability to be able to center your emotions and be able to control your emotions, then you're going to react negatively to the things that that person says. And a lot of the times in relationships or marriages, the things that are brought up when there is infidelity or someone said, I want a divorce, or I want a separation, that's the only time often when some of the real fundamental issues come to the surface, because we're too afraid to bring them up when we're actually in the relationship. So because of that, as soon as some of these issues come up, it wounds us at our heart, at our core, at our soul level. And because it's wounding us at such a deep level, that's going to create huge resistances. And when we have those resistances coming up, that results in us acting defensively and bringing up a whole bunch of negative reactions to it. And so if we're in that place, it can potentially make things worse and then give the person that wants to initiate the separation or the divorce another reason as to, see, this is why we'll never make it. So that's a potential disadvantage when it comes to staying. And secondly, just to expand on the first point, is that there's more intensity of emotions. The emotions come up, it becomes really intense, it becomes awkward. When we have those hard conversations, we look at that person in the eye, we wake up in the morning and it's, we're all walking on eggshells and not sure what to say and what to do. And that's when it all becomes even more intense. So the intensity of the emotions really starts to elevate as well. And that can cause huge problems in a relationship as well. And thirdly, it can be really, really draining. You see, you're probably having to take care of the kids or continue to work as well. And when you throw in all of those things and then also have a challenging marriage where you guys are struggling to communicate and actually open up, it's really, really difficult. So emotionally, it can be so draining, which is another reason why we have to make sure that we go deep and we learn to heal some of the deeper emotions inside of us. Now, you might be asking at this point, what do I actually do? Now, in my experience, when I've worked with clients, I've seen people stay and make it work, and I've seen people separate and make it work over the long term. Equally, I've seen people stay and get a divorce, and I've seen people obviously walk away, and that's resulted in a divorce as well. So to keep this really, really simple, I'm going to tell you that the key thing to making a decision is that you have to evaluate your circumstances, get to know you internally, and then also know your husband at a deep level and understand what exactly is going to be the best outcome for the both of you at this moment in time. So for example, if you feel that you guys can have some productive conversations and not get super defensive with each other, I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to stay in the marriage because you can actually actively work on those things. But if you guys are always at hammer and tong with each other and just keep fighting all the time and have no ability to stay centered at all emotionally, then it might not be a bad idea to be able to walk away so that you guys can get centered in yourself and maybe catch up in, a couple of weeks, or, have conversations outside of the family environment where you can actually discuss some of your challenges. It really is a horses for courses situation, because I've seen it happen in so many different ways, which is why I don't believe that there is just this one approach that is right or one approach that is wrong or anything like that. It's got to be specific and unique for you. You need to understand that. I know there's lots of people saying, oh, you have to make sure you stay, or no, you've got to get out, or anything like that. But it really is specific to your situation. You need to understand that. And that's why we have to work so much on our own internal selves, because as we grow ourselves, that's where we get the clarity of mind to be able to make the best decisions that we can for our future. So then how do we even go about working on ourselves? Great question. And it's all discussed in my free masterclass training that I talk through the 3 steps that my client Sarah used to be able to save her marriage. You'll really enjoy it. It's got some in-depth strategies and techniques that you can begin to use immediately to begin to save your marriage and begin to make the shifts within you that's going to help you, and not only you, but also your immediate family as well. And also those people that you interact with on a regular basis. So all you need to do is in the description section below, just click on the link where it says register for this masterclass, choose a time that works for you, come in there, play full out, bring a notepad or your iPad or whatever, and take lots of notes, because that's going to allow you to retain lots of information. You're going to love it, and make sure you stick around to the very end, because I'm going to give away a free gift that I know you're going to absolutely love. Secondly, I have a private Facebook group where all my beautiful, beautiful clients are part of, where you can connect in with these lovely individuals and be able to learn some specific strategies and tools on how you can improve you and improve your marriage in the process as well. So just click on the link below where it talks about the Facebook group, and I'll give you access to it. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've liked it, hit the like button below, click subscribe to get more videos like this. And if you want to learn the 3 steps that you can begin to take to be able to save your marriage, click this link above. And if you want to learn how you can give your husband more space, click this video above here. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon.